This episode is going to be a little bit different, more on the medical spin of things, and I'm going to explain exactly why you need to stick around and listen to this, because it might save your life. I'm going to share with you some personal stories from some patients of mine, and then I'm going to wrap it up with a personal story about myself, which unfortunately is going to apply to some of you as well. And so I do a lot of consulting. I work in the medical realm, I work in the technology realm, and I love the mesh of the two. And that's often what draws a lot of us to triathlon. We like the physicality of training and racing, but we also like the gadgets and gizmos and the monitors and all the other cool stuff that goes along with it. And so the title of this podcast is essentially, what if $100 could save your life? Undoubtedly, you spent more than $100 on the last piece of gear you bought. Some of the kits that we wear, even just a really nice pair of cycling shorts, can approach $100. So would you actually pull out your wallet and peel off $100 if it could save your life? And I want to share with you a typical story. And unfortunately, this happens more than many people want to admit or realize. And I had the opportunity to work with some athletes recently, and some of the people that I was training with looked just like me physiologically, relatively same build, relatively same watts on the bike, same lifestyle habits and everything. But I was a little bit alarmed to learn that one of my friends and colleagues had to go to the emergency department for chest pain, and went through a brief workup, and things came back relatively normal and stable. He had some blood work done, an EKG and a chest X-ray, and was felt to be really relatively low risk for any heart disease or heart problems. And so he was discharged and sent home, no big deal. And I just noticed that he seemed ill at ease on some of our longer rides or some of our more intense workouts, and began to kind of pressure him on it, and just talked about the logistics of getting checked for heart disease and some other options besides just the standard EKG or stress test. And he talked over with his wife and saw his regular doctor and had a treadmill stress test, which is a commonly performed test. I don't want to completely bash it, but the reality is that this test is not sensitive enough by itself to really pick up what it's designed to pick up. And so what we're looking for are blockages in the blood vessels, and these blockages can cause a heart attack. Obviously, something that anybody wants to avoid, particularly a triathlete who's in their mid-40s. And so we hashed it out, and I suggested that he spend a little bit of money out of his pocket and get a cardiac CT. And what this test does is it's a CAT scan. It literally takes just a few minutes to complete, and it looks for calcium in the arteries around the heart, the coronary arteries. These are the blood vessels that give the heart its blood supply. When those are pinched or blocked or plugged, the result is chest pain, shortness of breath, sweating, nauseousness, a full-blown heart attack, or unfortunately for about 50% of people who have blockage in their coronary arteries, the presenting symptom is death. And so it's obviously really hard to ignore that one, no doubt. But anyways, after some persuasion that, looking at the gear on his bike, that I knew he really could easily afford and really had no, at least in my mind, any rational justification for not going through with the test. And so he did. And lo and behold, he did have some blockage there, and went ahead and saw a cardiologist, had some interventions done, and is back at it full tilt without any worse for the wear. I don't want to get into the whole controversy around heart catheterizations and technology, because there are some newer technologies out there that are much more reliable and allow more precise decision-making than cardiac cath. One is intravascular ultrasound, which you can look up if you want. But this podcast is not a lecture for medical professionals. It's for the triathlete. And so what I just want to bring to light is that, if you have any worry or concerns about your heart health, maybe there's a family history there, maybe you were a smoker in a former life, maybe you're just new to the sport, or you're a little bit on the heavy side, maybe you just, despite your love for the sport, you still eat a standard American diet, pounding down burgers and fries. I've talked on previous podcasts about the half-life of the oil in a French fry is 66 days. And so there's a variety of things that we do to our bodies that stress our heart, stress our vascular system, And just because a person doesn't have any symptoms, a person's able to run a 630 mile and crank out 300 watts on the bike for a prolonged period of time, that does not mean that they don't have the potential to have some issues with their heart. And so I encourage you to partner with your healthcare practitioner to talk about any issues or concerns you have, and just to bring up the screening test. It's literally $100, and it has potential to save a life. So that's the patient story, and I've got many stories that are very similar to this, where I've had young people who have actually had the test, the cardiac CT test done, and gone on to get some stents and to really do some further risk stratification, whether that's blood pressure control or some issue to address high cholesterol. I don't want to get into the issue in this podcast. I talked about it before in terms of endurance exercise and the risk of heart disease or death, but just take that to heart. To flip things on its head, just to share a personal story, he had a test. My friend had a test. I refer patients to have a test. I'm in my mid-40s. I used to smoke cigars in college. Cholesterol is creeping up there. Blood pressure is creeping up there. And so I thought, it's probably worthwhile to have the test done. And so I did, and it was literally painless. I met with a cardiac nurse practitioner, did some screening stuff, got the test done, got a preliminary result, and my score was 0 on a scale of 0 to, depending on the institution, 3, 4, 500. 0 is perfect. And so I was pretty tickled pink to have that result, despite some of the bad things I'd done to my body in the past. And so that was all well and fine until the formal report that was typed up and sent by the cardiologist arrived a week later. And I had just returned from a trip and just popped it open, expecting just to file it in the file cabinet without another thought. And I was just totally shocked, totally blown away by the report. The report said, yes, 0 calcium, but your aorta, the blood vessel coming off the top of the heart, is enlarged and is sort of aneurysmal. And if anybody's ever heard that word before or had any family member or loved one or friend with that diagnosis, it is potentially devastating. And so it's really altered my life and sort of tipped things on its head here in the last few weeks, and certainly will have an impact on my training going forward and what I can and can't do. So I don't want to belabor the point and feel sorry for myself, but I will be sharing some of those images once I can get this CD loaded properly and get some of the images uploaded to the site so you can actually see what the cardiac CT looks like, what an aneurysm looks like. And I've also shared on the blog at mitchellmd.com some statistics that you'll want to know about in terms of the likelihood of you having this problem or a friend or family member having this problem and what it entails. And there's some other information there that I hope you find useful. So to sum it up here, really we spend a lot of time and energy and money on the sport of triathlon and other endurance events. And I really think that your life is worth a whole lot more than $100. And so I hope you found some value in this episode. I'm going to keep it short. And as always, I hope you have a fantastic week. Be safe, train smart,